From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey all, Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas at Stunning Digital Marketing. In this podcast, I sit down with my good friend Owen Greaves. We talk WordPress hosting and the life, the universe, and everything else. This podcast took a really interesting turn in conversation, so grab a drink and relax and enjoy the conversation that Owen and I had. This episode of the SDM Show is sponsored by Stunning Digital Marketing, the agency to handle all your WordPress website security needs. Go on over to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and find out how we can help you secure your website so you no longer have an issue with backups, being hacked, or your website being compromised. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. Today I'm here with my good friend Owen Greaves, the founder and maintainer of Billy Host. How are you today, Owen?
I'm incredible.
Yes, you are always incredible, sir, and you're coming to us from rainy BC, British Columbia, at the time of this recording.
Yeah, well, what we do out here is rain. We do a lot of rain. So much rain. We still have a drought. They can't rain enough to fill up all the reservoirs and make everything okay.
Yeah, that's so true. So normally when I jump on this podcast, I like to ask people what their podcast origin story is or what their WordPress origin story is. So I'm going to go one more. I'm going to ask you what your web hosting origin story is. Why did you start a web host?
Well, it's really just probably a boring story. It's the same old story. I was a COO of a tech company in North Vancouver, and the company got sold and I got sent home. And while the headhunter was trying to get me recruited for other organizations, I had to do something. So I started Billy Host, mostly out of frustration of the bigger web hosting companies because they were just making it difficult. And I won't get into specifics, but I thought they were pricey at the time. We're talking 2007, so this is 15 years ago, 16 years ago. And it was really frustrating to try and get good help, and that where the company would actually tell you when they fix something, they would tell you what you did or what they did. And so that you could learn and you could figure out how to solve your own problems. So I ended up being unemployed, for lack of a better description, and had to start my own business. So I just started Billy Host, and I wanted to help people that didn't understand web hosting or how to build websites and stuff like that. So that's how it began back in 2007. It was just out of necessity rather than, oh, I got a great idea.
Yeah, sometimes that's the way businesses start. I hate to say it. And how busy are you right now? Do you have a large, ballpark?
No, Billy Host is not a large web hosting company. It was never intended to be because it started out as a gap filler, right? Mm-hmm. So Billy Host has got about 300 clients. It's a small web hosting company. And that, is mostly so that I can actually help people because that's my goal. It wasn't to get as many web hosting people as possible. It was just like, I want to help people more than I want to do anything. So how I got my base clientele was I was doing workshops back in 2009, 2010 on the future of business. So I would go to do these workshops where people were paying to come and hear me speak and whatnot. I would promote Billy Host in those workshops, and that's how I gained my base clientele. So it was the best way I was able to grow the business.
Yeah, it's a good point. One question that always comes up, and I think I know what your answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask it anyway, is why should I go to a niche or a boutique host? You can almost think of it that way, like Billy Host, instead of one of the major players in the market.
Well, okay, now you're asking the question. Personally, I like the small to medium-sized web hosting companies because they will actually respond faster, but they will also help you. The larger organizations are always about upsell.
Yep.
So no matter what they're doing to help you, the larger organizations tend to say, well, we'll do this for you, but it's going to cost you $15 a month or whatever it's going to be. So I have found from that perspective that the small to medium web hosting company could move faster and better. Now, there are some limitations, like some huge limitations. One of them is email. Email is a huge limitation for the small to medium-sized web hoster because they're at the mercy of the organizations like Microsoft and Google because they are dictating, who gets mail and who doesn't. So I'm not sure that that's the answer you thought I was going to give, but mostly the smaller guy can respond faster, I think.
No, that was pretty well in line with what I was thinking. You mentioned email, so I always say to clients, and I'm pretty particular about this, you can use your web host for email, and it doesn't matter if it's Billy Host, if it's GoDaddy, if it's SiteGround, if it's Cloudways,
Whomever.
but there are better solutions out there for email. I hate to go there. People like Google, people like Microsoft, people like Fastmail out of Australia that make better email providers than the web host. So I think clients need to distinguish between the two and realize that if email is mission critical, then you should probably have your email on a mission critical server.
See, I don't look at it from a perspective as Google and Gmail being a better solution. They are controlling email solution. So yep. Web hosting companies would be fine if Google's and Microsoft didn't block perceived problems. Mm-hmm. If they just played with everybody else, then email wouldn't be an issue. Now, if you're looking for specific features and requirements, then sure, you can go to these larger organizations to get what you need. But again, we never had this problem with the pen and paper, so I'm just saying.
No, I know you are. In the last couple of years, we've had this big explosion of what we call TLDs or domains. Used to be, it was like a .com, a .info, a .biz, a .us, in Canada, .ca. And now you can buy everything from .online to .restaurant to .xyz to you name it. How do you feel about all these extra TLDs, and do they matter, or is it just another way to generate revenue?
Well, it is definitely a way of generating revenue, but you got to remember there was usually like 3 or 4 top tier domain levels, and that was it. Now there's over 1,500. Like it's gone to the point where, and then domain name selling is a huge business. So they widened the spectrum by offering, like you say, over 1,500 top level domains, so that domain sellers can still keep making money. But I think, when you were just down to .coms, .nets, .orgs, and what have you, when it was just down to that handful, or even if it was 10 or a dozen, that was easier to manage. Now it's really, really much more difficult for the registrars, I think.
I would agree with you. I still remember the days when you registered a domain name and it was like $200 a year for .com.
Yeah.
I remember those days, and that's not that long ago.
Well, and a lot of the big, like GoDaddy and some of the other ones, they're either selling a domain name for $1 or they're just offering a free domain. Well,
Yep.
they're not getting the domain name for free. They still have to pay for it, but they're subsidizing it. So they sell so many other services that they're able to eat the domain name because it's now only like, I don't know, $10 a year or whatever you want to call it. But even if they were to had such high volume of domain name registering and they got $1 a domain, it still cost them $1.
That's right. And I would actually caution people against using a free domain name if there's ever a chance that you might change web hosting providers, because sometimes if you read the fine print, you can't move that domain name. So you should be really...
You don't actually own it.
That's right.
It's usually the problem. So you get the free domain, but the hosting company owns the domain, and that's to their advantage.
Yep, I would agree.
They can sell it. They can, arm wrestle you for it, charge you more than it's worth.
The other thing with Billy Host worth mentioning is you offer pricing on 3 tiers, typically for WordPress hosting, and you do not play the discount game. So, and by that I mean when you go to a new host, they usually discount the first year, the first 2 years. You don't play that game. You just
I don't. I try to keep things simple.
Yep.
So I don't get into the discount because the discount really, it's just a game. Like you're just manipulating people into thinking it's a better deal. Mm-hmm. Costs in web hosting are misleading as well. So there are base costs, your server costs, software costs, and once you've got that, anything, and you need X number of clients, web hosting clients, to pay for that. Anything above that is just, it's pure profit. That's just the way business works. It's like any other business. Once you've got your base costs paid for, you figure out your break-even point, and then anything above that is gravy. And I don't play I'm in it for money thing. I'm mostly in this to, yes, of course, I have to pay for things, but I want to help people. That's my heart. That's my thing. And I just think the people that want help tend to come, and the people that don't want help, they go and they work with these other hosting companies, and that's fine. They can do that. But most of my clients come from either GoDaddy or HostGator. I've had a few from SiteGround and HostPapa and all these other ones. So there's none of them are perfect, and you're never going to find a perfect web hosting company. You just have to find something that you're happy with, that works for you, really minimizes the problems like email failure or 404 errors or 500 errors and stuff like that. Typically, those things are easy to fix. Email is a little harder because they're at the mercy of begging Google or Microsoft to clear your IP address, your email server's IP, so that they can continue flowing.
Yeah, so true. So, that's a really interesting conversation about hosting. Since we're kind of chatting a little bit and we're just into 2023, what's the biggest trend you see out there in the internet world? Or just for nostalgia, as we used to call it, the information superhighway? There's a term.
Well, the 2 things that are really happening right now, and one of them is the containerization, going with Docker and all that stuff. That's one arena, and it's the DevOps or SysOps world. When it comes to technology in general, AI is the big hot button right now, and AI is, it's got limitations too, just like everything else. But you have to realize technology does what humans tell it to do. And then there is the understanding that AI is going to supersede that. and that AI is going to figure out what's better than a human can figure out.
That is true. And I think, we were talking before we went to record. I think my biggest concern with AI, there's two actually. One is duplicate content, and we know how much Google likes that.
Yeah.
And then the other concern I still have is security. And I've been playing a little bit with Chat GPT, and it will even build me malware, believe it or not, if you so want to try. So I think there's all kinds of security issues around AI.
Well, there's still existing security issues before AI. AI is just going to expose it even more. So, security, man, we could go all day about that. I mean, it's just, there's so many problems and hacks. Now, I'll knock on wood, Billy Host has never been hacked. So, but I'm not saying that the bots aren't trying. Billy Host gets hit a ridiculous amount of times a day. But fortunately, I have, proper firewalling and layers of it to prevent that. And of course, the Cloud Linux environment, which cages every website into its own container. Typically, if someone gets hacked, that hacker can't go anywhere else but just that site. So that's easier to fix than a whole server.
So it's so true. And I think, you said AI is like one of your top things on your radar. I was thinking the other day, and I was doing a online webinar the other day, and I think one of the top things on my radar, and this shouldn't surprise you, is security. We've gone through the LastPass debacle in the last couple of weeks, and I'll say this, and I'll say this on every show. I don't think the owners have been as transparent as they should have been, and they didn't come clean a couple months ago where they should have. And part of that is because they've changed ownership and changed management structure multiple times in the last 2 years, so I don't think that's helped them. And there's even now out there a fraction of people who are saying, well, maybe we shouldn't use a password manager. And my argument would be, I still think it's better to use a password manager if it's used properly, not just used for the sake of using it. Do you have any thoughts on
that? Not really, because I don't spend a lot of time there. But there's the hot button right now is this tool. I forget what it's called, GPT Chat or something like that. That will write your content for you.
Chat GPT.
Yeah, Chat GPT. And that one seems to be getting a lot of attention. It's getting some traction right now. I have not looked at it or seen it. I've just heard a lot about it, specifically on Twitter. But, Twitter is a whole other topic as well. So, but apparently that is got its shortcomings as well, because it's, you depending on what you say to it, it's just going to mirror back a lot of what you're asking. So, but if you ask the wrong questions, it's going to give you answers to bad questions. So AI still has a long way to go from that perspective, I think.
Since you mentioned the Twitter name, let's go there. So there's been a lot going on with Twitter. We know our friend Mr. Elon Musk has bought it. We know there's all kinds of free speech issues running around that you can either like or hate him for. And then we all know there's this open verse product called Mastodon that's out there. And a lot of the radicals have moved there. I have an account on the WP Build server, but I have not really used it, so I should say that. And I think, to me, Twitter will still appeal to the masses in the long run, but do you have any feelings on this whole mess?
Well, Twitter, I don't think is going away. I think, hard pressed to see that happen. I mean, he would have to go completely implode, not only physically, but financially. And financially, I don't think that's going to happen. But Twitter is a unique tool. Now, there's Mastodon. I have not even gone there, but I'm just on their website right now, and I just like the way that infrastructure is. It's more fragmented and split, as opposed to where Twitter is more centralized. But it's also spread out as well, servers all over the world. But that was Google's big game, was putting servers all over the world. It's like CDN, right? So you've got fast response, and you've got servers with capacity. But I still like Twitter. Maybe I'm just holding on to a dead horse. I don't know, but Mastodon, I haven't looked at it, so I can't speak intelligently on it. I just haven't used it, haven't looked at it. I'm just, like I said, I'm just looking at their website at the moment, and I just kind of go, okay, it's just another social tool, but I don't know anything about it.
What I would tell you is the free speech issue hasn't gone away with Mastodon, because one of the cool, good or bad things with Mastodon is a Mastodon server can discuss what topics are discussed and how they're discussed on that server. Do I see free speech moderation all over again?
Probably.
When you think about it, right? So, and we all know in the world, even though the democratic world has a little more open speech, there's nothing 100% free speech. We have to accept that before we even have this conversation. Like in today's world, I can't go up to somebody and say, for better words, you suck because of A, B, and C, because somebody's going to call you on the carpet for it.
I think about when I was a kid. Now, I'm in my mid-60s, and my goodness, everybody would be in jail.
Yeah.
For the way we talked and the things that we did back in the 60s and 70s. I mean, we'd be in jail today. Like because everybody's on such hypersensitivity and offended by everything, like just everything. And I just kind of go, what happened? Like, what went wrong? Like, I don't understand, why everybody is so sensitive to things. Is it I don't know, just, entitlement? Like, what is it? Like, I don't know what it is. Like, it's really, really frustrating. At the same time, you got to be careful what you say and how you look at somebody. And it's like, I don't understand.
I think it's entitlement, a lot of it. I mean, I think about the stuff we used to watch on TV. So let's start with Bugs Bunny, because I like to go there, and I'm a Roadrunner fan. Could you imagine producing a show like the Roadrunner where we drop bricks on somebody's head?
Or an anvil.
every day. So there's problem number one. Let's go to Fred Flintstone. The racism in Fred Flintstone compared to today is incredible, and none of us came out bad. Then we'll move on to two shows called The Jeffersons and Archie Bunker.
Oh, Archie Bunker. Goodness gracious.
Could you understand those shows surviving in today's environment? I don't think so.
Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, something changed. I would say at the turn of 2000, like something changed.
Yeah.
Because prior, the 20th century, things were a lot more primitive. There wasn't as many gatekeepers as per se, even though there were. But today, everybody's a gatekeeper. Everybody's got a camera. Everybody's got a microphone, and it's very, very difficult. And even if you're in business and you act a certain way, then there's this whole cancel thing. Like, I don't understand like what that's about. Like, why are you trying to hurt people and ruin businesses? And like, I guess maybe I've I'm holding out hope for humanity is what I'm doing.
I agree with you. I mean, it's gone even more, and I don't know if you've read recently in the media, Gone with the Wind is having problems because of references in that movie. And then the latest one, which just disturbs my mind, is two actors who are now in their 60s are suing Paramount Pictures for appearing in a nude scene in Romeo and Juliet in 1968, and here we are in 2023, and that movie made their careers, and now they're suing because they claim they were child exploited.
Yeah, they're biting the hand that fed them, right? So, yeah, again, so much has changed, and so much is going to continue changing. Like, this isn't going to get better. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse.
No, it's
my
true.
humble opinion.
It's true.
But it doesn't change the fact that we still got to figure out how to work with each other and get along with each other and live with each other. And it's the same thing in business. Like, if you're in business, you got to figure out how to communicate to this, sensitivity. Like, it's difficult. It's hard. So, marketing becomes a whole different ballgame now. Like, it's not just, oh, hey, buy my stuff, or here's the features and benefits, buy my stuff. You have to talk a certain way so that it relates to the emotional state of society.
It's true. I mean, look what's going on with Girl Guides right now. The word brownies has been basically decommissioned. They're now calling them embers as of the media this morning. Yeah. And in sports,
yes.
We used to refer to kids as Adams and midgets and juveniles. Now it's gone UBs. Under 19, under 17, under 15, under 13.
Yeah.
It's just...
so everything has gotten so politically correct, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It's almost to the point where you can't say anything anymore.
Well, and I go back to business again. So when you're marketing and you have a slogan, so in Billy Host's situation, at Billy Host, I just say at Billy Host, we like to keep things simple. I don't get into other areas that might trigger these buttons of racism or offense or anything like that. I just try to keep it really simple. And your business now has to speak to what it does as opposed to what it thinks. Too many businesses are getting involved politically and saying what they believe is right. They have to just stick to their business.
I agree. I so agree.
Otherwise, you're just opening yourself up to all kinds of caca.
So let's jump into the area of WordPress for a minute. And there's a lot going on in the community. And I'm going to throw a quick question out. Blocks are a page builder, and why?
I personally, I think WordPress is it's a great platform. It's a great tool, and I think it's getting too complicated. That's just from my perspective. I like to keep things simple, so I don't really think we need to have so many bells and whistles and what have you. But what's going to happen with AI is going to get integrated into WordPress at some point. That's what I think.
I think so.
I just don't see how they can avoid it, because what people are going to want is they don't want to have to write everything. They just want to plug in some keywords and have it written for them.
I agree with that.
Then the publishing side of things changes dramatically.
Yep.
So is blogging dead? I don't think so. I like blogging, to be honest, but I'm lazy, so I don't like writing a lot of stuff. But there was a conversation on Twitter about, I don't know if it was Bob Dunn or somebody was saying that, blogging is not dead. Like, it's a great way to share information and to garner interaction and engagement. So I think AI is going to be a player from here on in, and I think WordPress is going to end up somehow that's going to get plugged into it, and WordPress is going to become this machine that will produce content for you.
I think so. I don't think you're far off. I would agree blogging's not dead if you like to write. I mean,
well, if you're right, it's awesome.
Yeah, we all remember our friend Darren Rose, pro blogger back in the day. He used to have a course called How to Build a Blog in 30 Days by posting once a day for 30 days.
And,
but that strategy doesn't work anymore either. So that's the reason not to do it.
The whole secret before, because this is what Google was dictating, as long as you had new content on your site, you were going to rate higher in their search.
Yeah.
So, again, they were dictating back then how you worked. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, that's not how I work. I don't work to that dance. I don't dance to that song. I work as I believe it to be the way I should go. So if I've got something to say, then I'll write something about what I'm thinking. And again, you have to be very careful what you do. You can't be as controversial as you used to be in the past, because everybody just kind of gets offended. And I'm just kind of going, so you can't really share your opinion. You can only give some insight as to, it's like being a prophet, like, well, I see this coming. It's like a futurist, right? I said, like I'm saying to you now, I said, I believe WordPress is going to integrate AI at some point into their machine. Well, that's a prediction that I'm making. If that happens, I was right. Big deal. I didn't try to profit from it. I'm just saying I believe this is something that's going to come because it just makes sense. It's logical, all of that. But there are things that don't make sense that happen, and you kind of go, where did that come from? Like, how did that happen? So, and it's the same in everything, though. Like, and I always go back to business. A lot of the businesses that are going to be successful after I'm gone haven't even been invented yet. So, stuff changes too rapidly and too fast. Mm-hmm. Especially today. I mean, back in the 50s, I thought, geez, my parents were young, but they probably saw more change than anybody. But now I'm going, well, actually, I think we've seen more change than any generation has.
I would agree with you. And I want to carry that change on a little bit to a topic dear to my heart, and that's streaming. And I was having a conversation with my mom, who's 78 years old, last night. And I said, do you realize the landscape on what's going on conventional cable is changing? And she said, yeah, they're screwing all the cable channels. And my response was, so we all come out of an era when cable TV did not exist. It was prominent in Canada probably in the mid-70s, right? I would think, when it really started. So I remember growing up and only getting over-the-air stations in Montreal. And we didn't have the choice we have now. And when cable came in, we heard the same song and dance. Oh, the cable channels are screwing over the over-the-air channels.
Right.
And I said to my mom last night, did you not think about what you said? Because this is what we went through in the 70s with TV. Except it was the cable companies, now it's the streaming companies. And where the basis of this came up was we got talking about what the NFL was doing. So we know in the States, the NFL on Thursday night is on Amazon Prime, not in Canada because Bell Global Media has the rights and they gain rights for NFL and they choose to put it on TV. And we know in the States, the NFL Sunday ticket package has gone to Google's property, YouTube, in a major rights deal starting next year and no longer on DirecTV. And the comment I made is I don't think it's long before things like the Academy Awards and award shows and major events outside of the sports sphere end up on streaming. Do you have any thoughts around those shifts?
Well, think about this. Think about all these shows, like or even these producers of shows, so Star Wars, whatever, they're all going to go off on their own and create their own networks. And they're all going to be able to dictate who gets to see it. Mm-hmm. So I think cable companies and all these streaming companies are looking at the wrong thing. Because individualism, independence, is the big hot button right now. So people don't want to be controlled by the 70-year-old douchebags in LA or wherever. Like they want to drive the truck themselves, and they're going to say, nope, you can have this show. No, you can't. Because they're going to end up having their own money to do that. Because and I've said this before, when Amazon first made it possible for you to write a book online, and I had a writer just go, no, they said there's going to be so much crap out there. And I said, yes, but crap doesn't sell. So I said, so if it's good stuff, people will buy it. If it's bad stuff, they won't buy it. Because that's just the way society works. Well, it's the same thing with the whole streaming and television and all of that. So if you're an independent and you want to, push your stuff out, if it's not good, people won't buy it. Gary Vaynerchuk said that years ago. Whatever you do, you have to do it better than everybody else. And I'm going, well, who knows what that is, but you got to work as hard as you can to make that possible. So I think the whole streaming and cable and all of that, as much as it's changed already, I think we're still in for a big upset, because it's going to get turned upside down. And we're also on the brink of another economic crisis with the stock markets and all of that. So I think a lot of things are going to change over the next few years because of that economic issue. When you think of all the issues we have problems still getting food supply. Some stuff is like, I was down at a grocery store here last week, and they had absolutely no eggs. Yeah, because I've seen that. Supply chain problems. I'm going, wow. So there's still more coming, and we're not in a good place that way. But I think the landscape is going to change so dramatically because of the economic structure. And then you've got, the political side of it, where governments are focusing on what I would consider the wrong things as opposed to the right things. But again, that takes us off on a whole different tangent. But the reality of everything is that the world is, for lack of a better word, is fighting back. Yep. And it's causing a lot more fragmentation and cracks in the armor and things breaking down. And then you've got the whole, the floods and the earthquakes and the fires and all of this stuff. That's just costing us money hand over fist. So we've got a lot of other issues. Man, we're off on a tangent here today, man. We're talking about life.
That's not a bad thing. It's funny, you were talking about supply chain problems, and the one that came right away to my mind was what we're dealing with by outsourcing all our critical supply chain. So one of the problems we have right now in Canada is cold medication. Cold season has been bad here, and I don't know what it's like out west, but walk into a pharmacy, a Shoppers Drug Mart, a Rexall in Toronto, and try and find something like NyQuil. And it's like, Owen, the shelves are bare.
They're bare here too.
And that's because we need, I think, as countries, we need to start reeling in our critical supply chain back into our country instead of saying to other countries, take care of it for us. I mean, that's part of the problem.
Same with gas and oil.
Yeah, the eggs one is interesting because we know the egg marketing boards control how many eggs are out there, right? I mean, that's how they're controlled in this country. And it means they're not opening up the tap big enough. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on. The oil issues in the world with gas prices. And we got OPEC holding the line and saying, we're not going to release more oil into the supply chain. Well, that's nice, right?
Yeah, but and so the old joke, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, it's obvious the chicken came first because we're not running on a shortage of chickens. You can find a roasted chicken in every store everywhere, but you can't find eggs. So, true. And of course, that's a whole different story because there's lots of chickens, and all of a sudden we don't have eggs. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a really interesting problem, and I think the world's at a tough place politically more than it's ever been. I mean, I look at what's going on in Ontario. I look at what's going on in the U.S. south of us. I am so glad I'm not an American today. I have to say that. I look at what's going on overseas with the messes in Russia and the Ukraine and so on. It's just unreal right now, to say the least.
Well, I don't know. I'm about human, not country, as per se. So I don't get caught up in the game of, oh, I'm glad I'm not this, I'm glad I'm not that. And I just kind of go, we're all people and we're all trying to survive. And some of us are making that easier than others. And some of us are just taking advantage. So there's this, it's a very fragmented society. It's a very damaged society because we don't know how to just help each other get along. We're so busy trying to get ahead of the next guy, take advantage of them. So food shortage, supply chain, it's all of this race to the bottom. And it's disappointing because you kind of, we're supposed to look after each other and help each other, but we don't.
No, it's true. And I think, around that, one of the things that comes to mind is people need to do a really good, better job at taking care of their mental health. And that's a big problem.
Well, that's part of it, though. Like, it's part and parcel of humanity that we are, if we're looking after each other and we're helping each other, mental health is a big part of it. Because if you are having mental health issues, my goodness, I hope you can recognize it, or somebody is coming alongside of you and saying, hey, how can I help? How can I get you to help, or something like that. But I can't speak intelligently on mental health because I didn't go to school for that. I don't have the education to say what's what. But my heart goes out to those that are struggling. And I know too many people in my life that are struggling, and all I can do is come alongside and try to help them. That's the only thing I can do because I can't fix them. So.
And I think one of the things you can do, truthfully, is every day tell the people around you that you care about them, you love them, and that they matter to you. And I think that's something we don't do enough of, to be honest.
Well, we're not very good at it, that's for sure. We tend to think of people as what they can give you, as opposed to, the other way around. What can I give them? Yep. And I think, to me, this is where, when I started Billy Host, I just wanted to help people. So it was about giving and not getting, Yep. Billy Host is a business, so let's not be foolish about that. Yes, it requires, there's a transaction, and it's a small amount of money on a monthly basis or annual basis, because you're spending more money on a coffee every day, multiple times a day, than you are looking after your website. So you really have to put things in perspective from that point. But I think my prayer and hope is that we will look after each other at some point, because it's not getting better out there. It's getting harder and harder to survive. People can't buy houses, can't even rent a place. I mean, when a rent is $2,000 a month, heck, I'm on a fixed income. I've got 2 pensions, and I only get about $14,000 a year. Well, $2,000 a month in rent is $24,000. Like, I couldn't rent a place. I couldn't move out on my own if I wanted to. So we're in a hard place. We're in a very hard place. And businesses are struggling the same way, because now all the costs have gone up, like supply chain costs. I have a friend who's in the insulation business, and he can't give you a quote because he knows that there's a price increase coming, and he's got to wait for that price increase to come before he can pass that on. Well, that's not good for business, because people aren't going to wait. They're going to go and find somebody else.
True.
It's rough out there, man. Like, if you're in business or just trying to survive, boy, I hope you got some friends. My dad used to say, you need 6 good friends. And I said, why is that? And he says, because it takes 6 to carry the box.
That is true. And on that note, Owen, if somebody wants to get a hold of you and talk about Billy Host and talk about hosting, how's the best way?
Well, billyhost.com is the domain name. It's a very simple business. You purchase your hosting. If you know somebody who can build a website for you, that's great. If not, Billy Host can assist. And we just, we're just here to help. It's not a complicated thing. If there's questions that you have about hosting or even like the cPanel environment, which is what we use, cPanel doesn't change that much in the back end either. So, like I said, hosting as a rule, as a whole, is kind of static. It doesn't change very much. So if there's specific things that you need, and everybody tends to cry, I need speed, speed, speed. Well, you can only get so much speed. Like the network of computers around the world doesn't work faster than any other network. So it's a very limited, it's got a cap. Like you can only get so fast. So I'm not sure, if speed is really the critical issue. I think the delivering of your content and you making sure you've got good content, that's really, really critical. But people will wait, just if your site's a little bit slow, they'll wait. Like they're not going off to another site for the same content. Like that's just not how people work. Because then they got to stop, open up, Google search and search again. So I think that's a misnomer. I think speed is just an excuse as opposed to, or a marketing thing, in my humble opinion. And I'm not saying Billy Host isn't fast. I'm just saying that there is a cap to that speed. And it's also set up and designed to sell you other services to make you believe that everything's faster. So take what you want from that.
So true. Thank you very much for your time, Owen. Have an amazing day.
Yeah, thank you. It's always fun to talk to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. This episode of the SDM Show is sponsored by Stunning Digital Marketing, the agency to handle all your WordPress website security needs. Go on over to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and find out how we can help you secure your website so you no longer have an issue with backups, being hacked, or your website being compromised. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. A very special thank you to my good friend Owen for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. Thank you for listening to this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is brought to you by Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing. For more information about Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing, go to stunningdigitalmarketing.info. From here, you can connect to us on social media, go to our website, and even go to the podcast to subscribe. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much. Keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. Make your business succeed.